ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. O Ramakrishna, the establisher of all religions, the embodiment of all religions, and the greatest of all incarnations, we salute thee. In the last class, we saw that several points about Gadadhara's life, that he solved a very complex religious dispute among the scholars. He was a young boy, so just he was moving about, hearing their arguments. They were not able to come to conclusion. He told them the conclusion. All of them were very much pleased, and then observed that precautious, genius mind of him. And another point was, he went into Bhav Samadhi on the Shivaratri day. On the Shivaratri day, he impersonated Shiva and actually became Shiva, possessed by Shiva, and he was standing and shedding tears of Ananda. So that is the Bhav Samadhi. Then also we learned he developed aversion to the school learning, the syllabus learning of what you call as book learning, because the reason was he found all the people who had been educated in that way, they were all selfish, they were not following dharma, they were not following truthfulness, and they had no love for God. So they were all thinking about this temporary world as the permanent world. And so they were trying to accumulate money, wealth, name and fame, etc., which was very dissimilar to his father's habits. He used to compare them with his father's divine life. He always used to love God, walk in the path of dharma, and truthful to the core. So he got disgusted with this book learning. So more and more he developed this dislike for book learning. Then in the meanwhile, he developed great love for reading and reciting Ramayana, Mahabharata, and also the several parts of the dramas that were enacted, the Puranic dramas about Rama, Krishna, Buddha, etc. So he committed to memory many of the songs and he used to recite them. He had a group of boys around him, so he developed great love for recitation, singing, drama, etc. In the meanwhile, in his family, Ram Kumar, his eldest brother, his wife became pregnant. She was about 35 years old. Ram Kumar had predicted prognosis that whenever she becomes pregnant, she will not survive her pregnancy and she will die. And so Ram Kumar became very much scared what would happen to her. In the meanwhile, during pregnancy, she became very much awkward in all her behaviors with the members of the family. There was a lot of peacelessness in the family because of that term. So normal rules of not taking any food or anything before the main deity, its worship is over, she would not follow. Like that, many of her behavior became very, very awkward. So that was a great peacelessness in the family. And then she gives birth to a male child, which was later on called as Akshay, and she died. That brought in a great change in the family. Then Ram Kumar had to worry about financial condition of the family, and therefore he decides to go to Calcutta to make some earning, increase his earning to support the family. So he leaves for Calcutta, and the second brother, Gadadhar, Rameshwar, he had to take charge of the family. But Rameshwar was a different type of person. He was good, he was a nice person, but somehow or other he could not take the responsibility. that had been cast upon him. So he paid whatever attention he could give, and to Gadadhar's education also he could not give much attention. With the result, Gadadhar became more and more free, and this freedom he utilized in the best way in learning so many songs, so many dramatic themes, and then reading Ramayana, Mahabharata, and the Vaishnava songs and all that. So became a great dear person to all the villagers, men, women, young, old. All of them were very eager to take him to their house and get recited this Ramayana, Mahabharata, and enjoy it and get uplifted. So we shall start today the further story of Gadadhar. Thus Gadadhar exercised an immense influence over the village women. They had already heard of the strange dream and spiritual visions that the boy's parents had at the time of his birth. The mother had the vision of Shiva and father had the vision of Gadadhar, of Gaya. So all these things they knew. So this boy is not an ordinary boy. He is of a divine descension. Therefore, so they had great respect from that point also. And his sweet voice, the tremendous passion he could put into his performances, all that made him very dear to all the women folk. And they had also seen with their own eyes the extraordinary change that came over his mind and body whenever he came in touch with the spirit of gods and goddesses. Therefore, it was quite natural that his intense devotion to God, his absorption when reading the Puranas, his sweet singing, and his unconventional, simple-hearted behavior towards them all aroused in those women a unique devotion and affection for him. We are told that Prasannamayi and other elderly women saw in Gadadhar the manifestation of the divine boy Gopala and loved him even more than their own sons. And younger women, believing that he was born as a part of Bhagavan Sri Krishna, looked upon him as their spiritual lover and friend. Many of these women were born in Vaishnava families, and a simple poetic faith was the basis of their religion. Therefore, it is not incredible that they actually believed this boy of noble mien and character to be God himself. Because of this faith, they would come and tell him without any reserve their inmost thoughts and would seek his advice and try to follow it. On such occasions, Gadadhar also behaved with these young women as if he were one of them. He would sometimes act the parts of well-known female characters and put on women's dress and ornaments. He did this when, at the request of his women friends, he acted the part of Radharani or of her intimate companion Vrinda. He would then be exactly like a woman in his gestures, voice, and movement. The village women would say that nobody could recognize him then. This shows how minutely the boy had observed the various ways of women. With his love of fun, he would often pass in that disguise in front of men with a pitcher under his arm to fetch water from the Haldar Pukur, quite 100 or 200, 300, 400 yards away. He would walk in front of women and nobody could recognize it is their Gadadhar. And in the woman's dress he is going. And so no one would ever suspect that he was a woman. We have already spoken of Sitanath Pine, a rich man of the village. He had 7 sons and 8 daughters, frightening number for the modern people. So 7 sons and 8 daughters who lived as a joint family in Sitanath's house, even after marriage. It is said that such a huge quantity of spices were necessary for cooking their food, that 10 stone slabs had to be used to grind them to paste every day. So in the villages they don't have mixer, therefore they had to use the stone slabs to grind. So such a large quantity spices had to be ground. Many distant relatives of Sitanath had also built their houses near his and lived there. Therefore, that part of Kamarpukur was known as Vanikpalli, the trader's quarter. Being situated near Kudiram's house, many women of that quarter, especially Sitanath's wife and daughters, used to come to Chandra Devi during their leisure and thus came to know Gadadhar intimately. They would often take him to their own houses and ask him to play dramatic parts or impersonate certain women characters in women's dress. Many of Sitanath's women relatives were forbidden to go to any place outside the family house. Therefore, they had not the good fortune to listen to Gadadhar's readings and songs at Chandra Devi's place. Perhaps that was why Sitanath's wife and daughters invited Gadadhar to their house. There it was that many women of the traders' quarter who could not go to Chandra Devi saw Gadadhar and became fond of him. Whenever they heard that he was at Sitanath Pine's house, they went there and enjoyed listening to his readings or seeing his acting and impersonation. The master of the house, Sitanath, loved Gadadhar very much, and other men of that quarter knew what a fine character the boy had possessed. Therefore, they did not raise any objection to their womenfolk listening to the boy singing the praises. The only person from the traders' quarter who raised any objection was Durgadas Pine. He too had a high opinion of Gadadhar and liked him, but he would, under no circumstances, allow any relaxation of the strict parda system observed by his women. He boasted to Sitanath and other relatives that nobody had ever seen the women of his house or could know anything about the inner apartments where they lived. He even looked down upon Sitanath and others who did not, like him, enforce parda. So a blow to the ego of Durgadas Pine comes now. One day Durgadas was bragging thus before a relative when Gadadhar came there. On hearing him, the boy said, "Can women be protected by parda? They can be protected only through good moral training and devotion to God." Good moral training and devotion to God. I can see everyone and know everything of your inner apartments of your house if I want to. This is Gadadhar's challenge. At this, Durgadas became even more boastful and said, "Well, let me see how you do it." "Very well, we shall see," challenged Gadadhar and went away. Some time later, one afternoon, without a word to anyone, Gadadhar disguised himself as a poor weaver woman by putting on a coarse, dirty sari and, among other ornaments, a bangle of silver beads on his wrist. Then he came just before dusk to the house of Durgadas from the direction of the market, with a basket under his arm and a veil covering his face. Durgadas was then sitting with some friends in the parlor of the house. Gadadhar introduced himself as a weaver woman who had come to the market for selling yam, but had the misfortune to be left behind by her companion. She therefore begged for shelter for the night. Durgadas made enquiries about her and satisfied with the replies, said, "Very well, go to the women in the inner apartment and ask them to take you in." Gadadhar bowed down in gratitude and went to the inner apartment. He repeated his story to the women and amused them with his gossip. Seeing her so young, even women could not recognize Gadadhar. Seeing her so young and pleased with her sweet words, the women allowed her to stay with them. Then they pointed out a place for rest and gave her a refreshment of parched rice and parched paddy, what they call as muri and koi, husked and sweetened. Gadadhar sat in the allotted place and while eating observed very minutely every room and each of the women. Not only did he hear the conversation they were having, but took part in it, and sometimes even put questions. The whole evening was spent in this way. As Gadadhar had not returned home, though it was very late, Chandra Devi sent Rameshwar in search of him to the traders' quarters, where she knew he often went. Rameshwar went first to Sitanath Pine's house, but was told that the boy was not there. Then coming near the house of Durgadas, he loudly called him by his name. When Gadadhar heard his brother's voice, he knew it was very late. He shouted back from the inner apartment itself, "I am coming, brother, I am coming, brother," and ran out to meet Rameshwar. It was then that the truth dawned on Durgadas. At first, he was a little embarrassed and felt annoyed at the thought that Gadadhar should have befooled him and his family. But the next moment, he began to laugh, seeing how well the boy had played his part. When they heard of the incident the next day, Sitanath and other relatives of Durgadas were glad that Gadadhar had dealt a blow to Durgadas' conceit. Henceforward, the women of Durgadas' inner apartment also began to go to Sitanath's house whenever Gadadhar was there. The women of Sitanath's family and of the traders' quarters became so fond of Gadadhar that they would send for him if they did not see him for some days. The boy sometimes went into ecstasy while reading or singing at Sitanath's house. And when they saw this, the women's devotion for him knew no bounds. Many of them, we are told, worshipped the boy when he was in ecstasy as an embodiment of Sri Gauranga or Sri Krishna. They had a gold flute and various costumes for male and female characters made for his use during impersonations. From time to time, we had the opportunity of hearing some of these women speak of the influence that the many-sided Gadadhar exerted over them. When some of us, including Swami Ramakrishnananda, went to Kamarpukur in 1893, we met Sitanath Pine's daughter, Rukmini, who was then about 60 years old. The reader will have a good idea of Gadadhar's influence when we relate what she told us. Pointing to the north, Rukmini said, "Our old house stands yonder. It is now in a dilapidated condition, since there is hardly anyone of us left. But when I was 17 or 18, it was the home of a prosperous family. Sitanath Pine was my father, and we were 17 or 18 sisters and cousins, including the daughters of my father's elder and younger brothers. Although there were slight differences in our ages, we were all grown up. At that time, Gadadhar used to play with us from his childhood and we were great friends. Though he was a big boy then, he continued coming to our house even when we were no longer children and he had free access to our inner apartments. Father loved him very much. He looked upon him as his chosen deity and had great devotion and respect for him. Some of the people of our quarter told him, "There are so many grown-up girls in your house, and Gadadhar is now a big boy. Why do you allow him still to enter your inner apartment?" He would then, that is Rukmini's father, would then reply, "Don't worry, I know Gadadhar very well." So much of faith. And they would not dare to say anything more. Ah, how many stories from the Puranas Gadadhar used to tell us, and what fun we had. We used to go on with our household work while listening to those stories almost every day. How can I, with one mouth, express the great joy we all felt when he was with us? It requires, like the Adishesha, 1,000 mouths to praise all the great joy they enjoyed. That's what she means. If sometimes he did not come, we would be in great anxiety, thinking he was ill. We had no peace till one of us went to the Chandra's house on the pretext of bringing water or doing something else and brought the news. Every word of Gadadhar was like a nectar to us. When he did not come to our house, we would spend the whole day talking about it, exactly like the Gopikas in the Vrindavan. Gadadhar made friends not only with the village women, but his many-sided genius and winsome ways brought him in contact with all people of village, whether men, women or children. He frequented all places where the villagers, young and old, gathered to enjoy the readings from the Puranas or songs in praise of gods. There was great joy whenever and wherever the boy was present, for none but he could read so well or expound religious truths with such earnestness. He had no equal in spiritual fervor at the time of singing the glory of God and in the power of arousing the spiritual sentiments. No one had a sweet voice like him, nor could anyone dance like him. When all were in a merry mood, he surpassed everyone in his ability to play partial roles and to imitate all kinds of affectation of men and women. Again, no one could narrate so well new stories or sing new songs fitting the occasion. So everyone, young and old, became fond of him and eagerly awaited his coming each evening. Gadadhar too was happy to meet and entertain the villagers, sometimes in one place, sometimes in another. As even at that age, the boy had a sound judgment, many of the villagers took his advice in the solution of their worldly problems. Attracted by his pure character and seeing that he went into ecstasy while uttering God's name or singing his praises, religious-minded persons were helped in their own spiritual paths by following his advice. Only hypocrites and knaves tried to avoid him, since Gadadhar's keen insight pierced through their deceptive exterior and detect their secret designs. The truthful and outspoken boy sometimes put these persons out of countenance by exposing them before others. Gadadhar's love of fun would also occasionally make him imitate their hypocritical ways in the presence of others. Although this made them angry, they could not do anything about it, since everybody took his side. Their only safeguard was to appeal to his kind nature, because they knew the boy was always generous to those who took refuge in him. Those people who were criticized or mimicked, they had to only go and tell him, please don't do it. Then only he would leave them. Otherwise, he will continue to place all their hypocrisy before others. As mentioned before, Gadadhar continued going to school for some time every day because of his love for boys of his own age. But on his reaching the age of 14, his devotion and desire for spiritual contemplation increased to such an extent that he became convinced that he had no use for any breadwinning education of the type imparted at school. Even from that time, he felt that his life was meant for a higher purpose and that he would have to direct all his energies towards the realization of God. A faint picture of that goal often arose before his mental vision, but as it was not yet developed in all its details, he was unable to grasp its meaning or to understand its purpose. He was just a boy of 14, you see. Nevertheless, whenever the problem of how he should direct his life arose in his mind, his discriminating intellect pointed to an absolute dependence on God and pointed in bright colors on the canvas of his imagination a symbolic picture of ochre cloth, sacred fire, food obtained as alms, and a wandering life free from all attachments. So this was the picture which we used to place before him as his ideal. But the very next moment, his loving heart reminded him of the condition of his mother, brother, and others of the family, and made him give up the desire to tread that path. Instead, it urged him to help them as best as he could by remaining in the world, trusting in God, even as his father had done. Since his head and his heart thus pointed in opposite directions, he waited for God's guidance, depending entirely on what God Raghuveer might dispose, for with his heart full of love for that God, the boy had always looked upon him as absolutely his own. Confident, therefore, that Raghuveer would solve his problems at the proper time, he had no longer any doubt. Whenever there was a conflict between his head and heart, it was his heart that always won, and he now did everything under its influence. The great message. So Swami Vivekananda again and again would stress this heart of Sri Ramakrishna. All his teachings, highest Vedantic teachings, were all full of rasa, the beauty of love. So it has a great heart. Even the dry philosophy would become very living when it came through his mouth. So from that young age, he would always have a heart. So when a mind says you become sannyasi, have ochre cloth and move about without any attachment, immediately he would think of his mother, family, simple villagers who were all benefiting from him. Should I leave them all and go? That would be his thought. So at that time he could never decide. So he would leave it in the hand of God. Let God does what he wants. At this time, a feeling welled up now and then in Gadadhar's pure heart, full of a rare sympathy. There existed such an intimate relationship between him and the people of the village that he looked upon them as his dear friends and shared fully their joys and sorrows. Therefore, as soon as the idea of renouncing the world arose in his mind, his heart reminded him of those simple-hearted, loving villagers and of their implicit trust in him. He knew his path was to conduct his own life in such a way that by following him as a model, they might realize high ideals and transform their present relationship with him into one that was always spiritual. The boy's heart, free from the slightest taint of selfishness, spoke to him. It is selfish to renounce the world only for your own salvation. Do something that will be for the good of others also. The great teaching Sri Ramakrishna gave when Swami Vivekananda experienced his first Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Swamiji, you all know, went to Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna asked him, "What do you want?" He said, "I want to be absorbed in Nirvikalpa Samadhi only once in 2 or 3 days. To come down, take a morsel of food, again go back into Samadhi, always be merged in Samadhi and in the joy of it." Sri Ramakrishna said, "You want only your salvation, your own joy. Don't think about the world. I thought you would be like a banyan tree, sheltering thousands and thousands of people with your shelter. And you are thinking about your own self. What a mean mind you have." So when a disciple asks for Nirvikalpa Samadhi, the Guru would be very happy. But Sri Ramakrishna was annoyed. "I didn't want you to simply have Samadhi for yourself. You must help everybody to attain Samadhi." Later on, that's what Sri Ramakrishna did. Sri Ramakrishna said, "The God that you see inside your heart is there in the outside world. What you see outside the world, in the outside world, it is all God alone. So serve the outside people. Serve the people in your family. Serve all your friends, relatives. But have the eye for God inside them. Serving God in man. Shivajnane Jiva Seva. This great teaching he is going to give to the world." So that Gadadhar, even at this age, he could not think of leaving the villagers for their own fate, for his own joy of spiritual life. But so far as his study at the school and later the Sanskrit school was concerned, Gadadhar's head and heart were in full agreement. Even then, he did not leave school altogether because he knew his friends would miss him badly. There also, he doesn't like the school, but he likes the friends. And the friends should not miss him. He can do without them also. He had enough inner stuff to engage himself with, but about them, it could not be said the same. Therefore, he would go to the school to meet them and give them company and keep them joyful. For all the boys of his own age, Gaya, Vishnu and others loved him dearly and looked upon him as their leader because of his great intelligence and courage. Gadadhar, however, found at last a favorable opportunity to leave the school. One day, some friends who knew his dramatic talent proposed that they should form a party of yatra players. Yatra is drama players, and requested him to take charge of the training. Gadadhar immediately agreed, but knowing that their guardians would raise objection, the boys were at first worried about a suitable place where they could undergo the training. Clever Gadadhar finally selected Manik Raja's mango grove. That was a big mango grove where few people would go. So he selected that should be the place where we will practice all our dramas. And it was settled that every day some of them should absent themselves from the school to meet there at the appointed time. This plan was immediately put into effect. Under Gadadhar's training, the boys learned by heart their own parts and songs, and the mango grove became the happy scene of performance of the plays depicting the lives of Sri Ramachandra and Sri Krishna. All the details of each performance had to be arranged by Gadadhar with the aid of his own imagination, and he himself had to act the parts of the principal characters. The boys, however, were very happy to find their little group working in perfect harmony. It is said that from time to time Gadadhar went into ecstasy during these performances, just as gone into ecstasy during Shivaratri day. Here also he has to put on the dress and impersonate Krishna, Rama. He would go into ecstasy. The boy's skill in painting could now find much opportunity for improvement, since most of his time was spent either in religious singing or in enacting plays. But one day, on a visit to his youngest sister Sarvamangala at Gaurhati, not Guwahati, Gaurhati, he saw her cheerfully serving her husband. Shortly afterwards, he painted a picture showing the couple in that happy mood, and all the members of the family were surprised to see how lifelike the painting was. Sketchy. Such a sketching, it was so easy for him. It is so difficult. Swami Vivekananda also tried his hand at sketching in the West. One Maud Stum, one lady, very good painter, she taught him sketching. After 3 days or so, Swami Vivekananda made Turiyananji sit as his model, and then he sketched Turiyananda. Then Maud Stum, his teacher, was simply wonderstruck. In 3 days training, he could sketch like this, like any other trained painter or artist. So he wondered. Here Gadadhar had all this talent. So he could sketch his sister Sarvamangala serving her husband in a Shraddha day. Gadadhar, however, became very competent in molding images also of gods and goddesses. His religious tendency led him to do this often, and he and his friends would then worship those images in the manner prescribed in the scriptures. So not only making the images, worshipping it also. And the worship also he knew all the details because he was worshipping Raghuvira every day. After he left school, Gadadhar followed the dictates of his heart by engaging himself in these activities, besides helping Chandradevi in her household work. He became very fond of Akshay, that motherless child of his elder brother, his brother's motherless child, who very often kept him busy. In order to allow Chandradevi time for her household duties, it now became a part of his daily routine to take the child on his lap and kept it amused in various ways. What a heart! 3 years went by in this way, and Gadadhar approached his 17th year. Through Ramkumar's exertions, the number of students in his Calcutta school had increased during this period, and he was now earning more than before. Although he spent most of his time in Calcutta, Ramkumar used to come once in a year to Kamarpukur for a few weeks to see how things were going on with his mother and brothers. This time, when he came, he particularly noticed Gadadhar's indifference to regular study and was worried about it. He made careful inquiries as to how he spent his time, and after consulting his mother and Rameshwar, decided to take Gadadhar with him to Calcutta and keep him there. He thought it advisable to do so because with the increase in the number of students, the management of his school had become difficult and he felt the need of an assistant. So it was settled that Gadadhar should go to Calcutta to assist him a little and at the same time study under him along with his other pupils. When this was put to Gadadhar, he did not raise the slightest objection because he knew that it meant helping his eldest brother, whom he respected like his father. Then, at an auspicious time, on a lucky day, Ram Kumar and Gadadhar paid homage to God Raghuveer, took the dust of their mother's feet, and started for Calcutta. There was an end to the mart of joy at Kamarpuku. Chandra and other women devoted to Gadadhar somehow spent their days with his sweet memory and the thought of his future welfare to sustain them. Now, there is the next chapter before going. The author, Swami Sharadanandji, gives an introduction, a preface to what this new story he is going to tell, that is going to come. So we shall start that one. By the grace of God, the discussion on the unique spiritual practices of Sri Ramakrishna as a spiritual aspirant is now presented to the public. We have not presented here merely a philosophical discussion on his unprecedented love for these sadhanas and on the principles underlying them, but also tried to ascertain the dates of the principal events of his life from his 17th to 40th year and to narrate them chronologically to the reader. It is something like a research paper, very difficult. In the case of an avatar, an incarnation, everything is done in secret, behind the screens, and all alone. So it is very difficult to ascertain, number one, the incident itself, the details of the incident, and the historical point when it was done. It is much more difficult. So such a difficult job the author has done. So he is telling us in the preface the next sadhanas we are going to tell. As a preface to that one, he is explaining the difficulties they experienced, how they could come to decisions. Therefore, this part of the book, as the spiritual aspirant, may be regarded as the history of his life as an aspirant, down to the time when his boy disciples, young disciples, with their leader Swami Vivekananda, came to his holy feet. We entertained great doubts at the time of writing the present part of the book, whether we would be able to ascertain the dates of all important events of the Master's life. Although he told many of us the facts of his life as a spiritual aspirant, never did he chronologically narrate them to anyone. It is not possible. We talk about our incidents in our life. We don't narrate chronologically. What is important at the time, whatever comes to the mind, so we tell. So there is no chronology there. Similarly, Sri Ramakrishna also would tell many things about his incidents in his life, but they would not be chronological. One he would have experienced in the first year of his sadhana, and the second would have been the last part of his sadhana, after 3 or 4 years. Like that, chronologically, he would not narrate. Consequently, the events of this period of his life have remained confused and complicated in the minds of his devotees. But as a result of investigation, we have now been able to ascertain by Sri Ramakrishna's grace the dates of many of those events. There has continued till now a controversy about the year of the Master's birth, for he himself told us his original horoscope was lost, and the one that was cast afterwards was full of errors. This is Sri Ramakrishna himself is telling about his horoscope. We have been able to solve that dispute by consulting number of almanacs, more than 100 years old. Therefore, it has become easy for us to ascertain the dates of the events of the Master's life. The facts about the Master's worship of Shodashi, Holy Mother as Shodashi, were not so far known to anyone. It will be easy for the reader to understand that event when he reads this part of the book. In conclusion, our humble prayer to Sri Ramakrishna is that the book may receive his blessings and be a source of good to all. So we shall also stop here. We will take up the further story in our next discourse. Niranjanam nityamanantarupam bhaktanukampadhrita vigraham vai Yishavataram parameshamidhyam tam Ramakrishnam shirasa namamaha. O Ramakrishna, of taintless, changeless and infinite form, who has incarnated only to bless the devotees and who is the adorable Supreme God Himself, we salute you with our heads down.